It should be up there with the level of NASCAR or golf. I was getting burned out. I was really thinking I could beat everybody this way. I'm James Elam, Jameselam. I grew up basically in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. My childhood, is great. I grew up on 280 acres and had a great house and 2 ponds in the backyard that I got to fish all the time. So that was probably one reason that I'm doing what I'm doing now, and I fish a lot. But I had a lot of room to roam and go shoot guns and go fishing and ride four-wheelers and stuff like that. So I grew up in that environment, similar to where I'm at now. My dad basically had a lot to do with me being a professional angler now, because he was a competitive bass fisherman at that time. And he was doing tournaments, and when I got a little bit older, I started doing tournaments with him, doing father and son tournaments, and it kind of just snowballed into, part of what I do. I didn't necessarily choose fishing at first. Well, I didn't say like, oh, I'm gonna go become a professional angler. I just knew that I was gonna have more time to do it and do the things I loved. It just so happens, once I got into college, they had the very first national championship bass fishing tournament collegiately. So I jumped into that, and I did that at Oklahoma State University. And there was like 4 or 5 of us in the club that started the club up to do it. And it was just the infancy of the sport in college. By the time I left Oklahoma State, I was the president of the bass club for 3 years. And we had 40 guys in the club by the time I left. I was out of college for 2 or 3 years. I had a couple of different jobs and things were okay, but I just didn't see what I was gonna do for the rest of my life. The job that I had I'm very thankful I had it, because it was probably the worst job you could have had. I worked for like the worst, company, it seemed like. It was just a terrible place to be. And man, it just motivated me just to be in a bad situation and to overcome that, you know what I mean? I could have quit that at any time and gone on to something else, but it almost pays to work a bad job, I think, sometimes. So it made me want to fish more. It motivated me to fish more and make it doing something else that I loved. I think that was a very critical thing, having, a tough job that I didn't like, is really putting that fire under me to go do something that I really liked. I'm really kind of a motivated person that really wants to plan things out. It just so happened, the Bassmaster Classic was going to come to Grand Lake. How you qualify for the Bassmaster Classic is you had to fish either the Elite Series at the time, or you got to fish the Opens and win an Open. So I jumped in the Opens and qualified for the Elite Series through that region. And so I had a big decision to make. I was in a good position to go do it, so I just ended up doing it. 2015 was my 3rd year in the Bassmaster Elite Series, and that's where things clicked for me. Something happened there where I found a really good recipe for being a consistent angler. I was really thinking that I can impose my will on fishing, kind of like almost to a physical aspect. Like I could wake up earlier, I could outwork everybody, and I could beat everybody this way. And that does help, being in shape and doing all those things, but that's not also working smarter. And I learned that sometimes you can't fight just a bad day on the water. You just have to roll with it, understand it's gonna happen, and learn why it's happening. The result was good. There's the baby pattern of bass fishing, right? And there's definitely something to that. There's no doubt about it. We don't know what it is, but it's something to do mentally with the angler. And the mental part of a bass angler is everything. But I think there's something to be said for not caring. And when you don't care too much, you care just enough, and do all the things you're supposed to do, but just don't care too much, you can do really, really well bass fishing. But if you care too much, it'll let you down every time. I think that you just gotta back off and just keep at it, but just know that your day's coming. For me, my life, there's certain things I enjoy. For example, this off season, I'm doing other things besides fishing, but doing fishing at the same time. I'm getting ready for next year. Slowly but surely, just got my boat in, I'm rigging it. I'm also doing a lot of projects at home. All those things that take a lot of time, I'm handling all that business, in the meantime. I like to stay in shape, I like to lift weights at least twice a week, bare minimum once, jump on the elliptical or the treadmill if I have to, get a sweat broke, listen to podcasts. I like to play fantasy football, I like to watch NFL football. Also, you know, my wife barrel races, so I follow her around a little bit this time of year, and we'll go to a barrel race or whatever. You know, every now and then I get a little free time here or there, you know, once a week or something like that, and I like to build my own baits. You know, I don't like to build everything, but I like to kind of focus on things that I think I could make better than I could buy. There's a lot of little things like that that I enjoy that I do. So these are a litter of puppies that were dumped down at the lake. This is probably the 5th rescue my wife, Sam, has done. You know, everybody has their way of giving back or doing charitable things, and this is our thing, is we usually foster dogs, give them a foster home, and work with an adoption agency to try to get them homes. So right now we've got these 3. They're a little bit wary of people, but you know, they're really good dogs, and we're just trying to find a home for them right now. So after 2016, I qualified, you know, for the Bassmaster Classic the following year, and going out to 2017, that would be my 2nd Classic I was about to go fish. Man, it was awesome because I didn't have all the pressure on me that I had before. Got really close there, had a really legit shot, you know, last day, ended up finishing like 4th. And then going into the next year, qualified for the next Classic. At the end of the year, won another Bassmaster Central Open. That was about the time I think I had one more season on the Bassmaster Elite Series, and it was a great one. And then that was the time where the MLF split happened with Major League Bass, or Major League and BSS. So there was a lot going on there, and I was making the transition. I think going into 2019, I was going to Major League Fishing. That was a crazy, you know, time in the sport. It was a crazy time to be an angler, and really to be an angler in the middle of it, you know, because bass fishing, I've never felt like it is what it could be. I always had higher dreams and expectations for bass fishing, especially after I've done it for 4 or 5 years and had been successful at the point. I felt like this sport had so much more potential as far as fan viewership and engagement. It should be up there with the level of NASCAR, golf, or you know, a lot of the other sports that Americans like to watch. That was a big reason for, you know, going to MLF to try to build that and the sport go bigger and better places. It was just one of those things. I just felt I was getting burned out where I was at, and I just didn't feel like the sport was what it should be. And it was just every year was the same thing. I was working so hard, and it was just really capped. It was good, but it was capped. In Major League Fishing, I've done that for 5 years now. I've fished 3 Red Crest. I'm about to fish my 4th one next year. So I've had some success there, learned how to be a lot more better tournament angler in the multi-fish format. That took about a year of learning curve for me to really change the way I looked at it. And there's not just that dynamic to Major League Fishing. There's also a lot more going on there. There's a score tracker, so everybody out there on the water knows what you have. So at any point in time, if somebody really wanted to, if you were catching them good, they can come fish around you or do what you're doing. So score tracker can be your friend, or it can be your enemy. As if you're like, oh man, you know, it's been an hour and I haven't had a bite, and so-and-so's catching them, and so-and-so's catching them, and everybody's catching them but me, and I'm not very good. You know, it can do that to you, and you don't want to let that happen. I use the data from it. So-and-so's catching them. Okay, that makes sense. You know, he's a pretty good so-and-so type of fisherman. I'll keep that in mind. Put that in the back burner, still gonna go along with what I'm doing, and you know, just use little knickknacks and things like that. I met KastKing. I knew, you know, from a couple other guys like Cliff and Brent that they use their equipment, they use the rods and reels, and they had great success with them. Saw those guys doing well with them, and started talking to Cliff about it. He introduced me to Al. So that's where I met Al for the first time. KastKing is very unique. The innovation, the fast speed of KastKing, just not from the reel standpoint, but from just the company's standpoint, they're willing to make changes and do things, whatever they think's better, they're gonna go do it. I had the opportunity to go to China this fall. After, you know, our regular season was over, I got a call. You know, it was pretty short notice. It was basically gonna be in a month. Hey, can you go to China? You know, there's a fishing tournament coming up. We want you to fish in this tournament on behalf of KastKing. Man, it was just, there was just so much going on in China, and it's just so, It's so populated and it's so fast paced, and the technology's everywhere, and you're just immersed in so much while you're there. It's just a lot to take in, especially for a guy that lives in the woods like me, right? And spends most of his time in a bass boat. Yeah, so my experience with the KastKing team, you know, we had mostly Rachel and Sophia taking care of us, you know, especially getting us there. We had RJ, and we just had, you know, there were 6 handlers for me and Brent while we were there, so we were treated like kings and we didn't have to worry about anything. It was so easy, and the KastKing crew was just so awesome to us the whole time. If I was talking to my younger self, you know, a piece of advice that I do know now that I would like to have known back then and told myself is, you don't have to listen to everybody. You can make your own decisions in your own way based upon what you think's right. In the grand scheme of things, you don't have to listen to all the people out there. Everybody's got a different story, a different path, and a different way of doing things. Don't listen to the noise. There's a lot of noise out there, especially nowadays. You know, we're in the age of social media. This was an election year too. Talk about all that noise. There's just so much stuff out there, and you don't ever want to let that get you in a bad mood or negatively affect you. There's a lot of stuff going out there, but at the end of the day, I'm the one with the rod, I'm the one fishing. You're in control of your own destiny, so it's important that you know that. So the reason why I fish is because I love it. I felt like I was almost in some kind of weird way chosen to do it. It seems like everything I've done in my life has helped me in some way to be a professional angler, whether that be some kind of high school sport or some kind of thing I did in college, or, you know, just meeting people, certain people. But the reason why I fish is because it's part of my culture and I love it, and it's just something that I wouldn't live without, really. That's why I fish.